oil that we all know. Each and every company has their own data, but how to manage those data? How to manipulate those data? To handle those data, there is a concept called database management system. So yes, in this tutorial, we are going to talk about what is database management system. How can you manage your data using MySQL? And where are the places where actually we need to manage our data? So in this tutorial, we will start with basics of MySQL and what is database management system as well. Before starting the tutorial, let me introduce that Great Learning has come up with the brilliant idea that is Great Learning Academy, where you will get almost 80 plus free courses, and after completing your course, you can claim your certificate as well. And if you want to do these courses in your mobile application, that is also possible using Great Learning app. So let's get started with the tutorial. Let's have a look at what is SQL. So whenever you are going for using your data, you're retrieving data, storing data, that time you need to have a proper way to do that, right? A proper language for that. So in that case, SQL comes into the picture. So SQL stands for Structured Query Language that helps to access and manipulate your database. SQL became a standard of American National Standards Institute, that is ANSI, and also it's known as ANSI SQL in 1986, and of the International Organization for Standardization ISO in 1987. So what's the difference between SQL and ANSI SQL? So when it comes to ANSI SQL, there are some parts where you can use this SQL for any software, right? You don't need to change your SQL format for any particular software. All types of software we use for database management system that will support ANSI SQL, right? So this is what got registered in 1986. Now let's have a look at MySQL, because in this tutorial we are going to use MySQL software. Now let's have a look at how can you install MySQL. So installing MySQL, you need to go to their official website, that is www.mysql.com, and from the downloads you can download your MySQL. But before downloading the MySQL, be sure you are not going for Enterprise Edition, because if you want to go for Enterprise Edition, you need to pay for that. But there is an option where you can use MySQL for free for like the student if you want to do their own databases and if they want to practice their databases. So that time there is a free version is also available for MySQL, right? And you also take care of your system configuration. So in MySQL, there are lots of version is available according to your system configuration, right? So you have to choose your MySQL carefully for that. Now we have already seen that how can you install MySQL. Now we will move towards how can you start coding or how can you start writing your own query using MySQL. So there are some data types concepts we have in MySQL. But what are those data types concepts, right? And what is that data type stands for? A data type is an attribute that specifies the type of data that the object can hold. The data types can be integer data, a character data, monetary data, date and time data, or binary strings, and so on. So basically, in our case, maybe we are going to use character strings, numeric values, date and time, and binary. Now we will have a look at what are the string data types we have in MySQL. So we have character data type that stores in number of characters in bytes, where in is in the range of 1 to 8000. So basically this is the range or the length of those data types. Now comes the nchar. So what is that nchar stands for? So it stores n Unicode characters to n bytes, where n is in the range of 1 to 4000. Now we will have a look at what is varchar, right? So it stores up to 231 to 1 characters. But wait, what is that varchar stands for? And why this is named as varchar, right? As the name suggests, varchar means character data that is varying. And it's also known as variable character. It is an intermediate length string data type. So basically it can hold number, letters and special characters. So and SQL varchar usually holds 1 byte per character and 2 more bytes for the length information, right? Now we also have varchar max. So what is that varchar max? So it stores up to 231 to 1 characters, actual string length plus 2 bytes, right? Now we have in varchar. So now we have n varchar. So it stores approximately n characters and to an actual string length plus 2 bytes where n is in the range of 1 to 4000. Now we have n varchar max that stores up to 231 minus 1 divided by 2, then minus 2 characters. Basically 2n actual string length plus 2 bytes. So these are the data types we have particularly for string types in MySQL. Now we will have a look at what are the type of commands we have in MySQL. So you already got what are the data type we have, but where can you use these data types, right? So in that case, you need to have a proper command. So SQL is basically based on all types of command. So basically we have 5 types of commands. We have DDL, DQL, DML, DCL and TCL commands. I know you are thinking what are these DDL, DQN and DML commands, right? Wait, I will give you a brief and I will show you how can you implement them in MySQL as well. So first let's start with DDL commands. So basically DDL stands for Data Definition Language. It helps to define the database schema. Also it deals with description of the database. Also have power to deal with creating and modifying the structure of database objects. So let's have a look at how DDL works and what are the command we have under DDL. So we have create command. So why do we use that create command? This command is used to create a database, or it also have some objects. Maybe you want to create a table, index, function, views, store, procedures and triggers, right? And there comes the drop command. But why do I need to use drop command, right? So drop is mainly if you don't want some of the part of your database, like mainly used to delete objects from the database, right? Maybe you want to delete a table, maybe you want to delete a function, view, store, something like that. Now comes the alter command. So why and where we use alter? Alter, from the name itself, you can understand you can alter something. So maybe it's used to alter the structure of the database. So let me give you an example, like maybe you create a table and after that you want to add one more attributes, which stands for columns. So in that case, using alter statement, you can actually change your structure of the table. So this is how alter works. Then comes the truncate. So what is truncate? So truncate command is used to remove all the records from a table. So which includes all memory allocated for the records are removed, right? So basically truncate is used to remove all the records from a table. Now comes the comment. So this command is used to add comments to the data dictionary. And lastly, we have rename. So what is that rename stand for, right? So this is used to rename an objects existing in the database. Now we will have a look at how can you use them using MySQL. Now we will go to MySQL software and I will show you how can you do these commands. So we already written the commands. Now I will show you what are the commands and how can you do that. So before start with that, MySQL has 3 parts, right? One is a console. Over here you can write your data or your language, structured query language. Here you will get your, like if you write one structured query language, that is SQL commands, and if you want to see your query is actually working or not, you can see over here. So it will, if you get a green tick over here, so basically, okay, your commands are running. Your commands are executed properly and you will get a message for that. And if your command has some problem, you will get an error code as well, right? But before that, let me show you how can you create your first SQL script. So basically this is known as script. Here you can see an option called file, right? You can go from here as well, or you can see over here there is a plus sign in SQL. You just need to click on there, right? And from there your script is ready, and or you can say your script where like the document is ready where you can write your script. If you want to save your script, how can you do that? So here you will get an option called save the script, right? You need to click over here, and the location you gave to save your script, you will get that over here, and you need to give the name of your demo accordingly. But the extension of the demo will be .sql. So maybe you can give demo 2, and then you just need to save it. And one more thing, if you don't save your data and the command you have written, so that will be lost, right? So whenever you are going to start working with MySQL, you have to be sure that your data is already saved, right? And MySQL is not case sensitive. So whenever you are going to use MySQL, you don't need to take care of the alphabets. I mean, the alphabets means the hierarchical alphabets, or maybe that's a capital letter or a small letter. You don't need to take care of that. All you need to take care the name. So that is why the MySQL is not case sensitive, right? Now we will have a look at how can you create your database. So first, if you want to create your database, you need to write a You need to write a query for that. So here you need to write create, the first command, the DDL command, right? So you need to write create, and then I'm going to write database. And then you need to give the name of your database. So for my case, maybe I'm going to give MySQL, then demo, right? So this will be my database name. Here, if you want to execute that, you need to select the hold command. Otherwise, it will not be executed. So in this case, you need to select the hold command, and then you need to press this sign, right? So you can see there is a pop-up came that execute the selected. Okay, it's gone. Okay, execute the selected portion of the script or everything if there is no selection. So if you don't put any selection, it will execute the whole query. Okay, here one more catch over here, you need to use a semicolon. So whenever you complete your query, you need to put a semicolon. So these are the syntax you need to remind whenever you are going for using SQL, or if you are going to write SQL query. Let me just select the part, and then I'm going to write a execute, right? You can see I got a message that one row is affected, and I got a green sign as well. That means my query got executed. Now, if I want to do the same thing, right? If I want to go for making the same database with the same database name, let's see my SQL software is going to take that or not. Let me execute that. Yes, I got an error message. You can see can't create database, right? It's as it is already exists. So you have to take care of that as well. Whenever you have made one database, you cannot use the same database again and again. So your all database name in MySQL Workbench is always be unique, right? Let me just delete it. Now what I need to do, I need to say, okay, I have created my database. Now what I need to do, I need to give a information or a instruction to my MySQL that, okay, I have created a database. Now I want to use them. To do that, we need to use a command called use, right? And under use, you need to give what database you need to add, right? Use, and then I need to copy this part, right? So this command basically give an instruction to your MySQL Workbench. Okay, I have created my database, or already I have this database. Now I'm going to use this database, right? So I said use this. Now let me execute that. Yes, you can see 0 rows affected, but this is actually worked. So now whatever the table or whatever the data you are going to add in your database, it will come under MySQL demo, right? Now let's have a look at what are the other commands we have. Let me go to the previous slide. Okay, so already we have covered create. Now maybe I am going to use a drop command. Let's see if we can drop our databases, whatever database we have made. So we have made our database MySQL demo. Let's see if we can drop them. So dropping them means you are going to delete that database. So let me just write, or I have, yeah. So I need to write drop database and then MySQL demo. So basically you are giving an instruction to your MySQL workbench. Okay, I have created this database. Now I want to drop them. What I want to drop? I want to drop a database. So drop database and then you need to provide the database name. That is MySQL demo. Let me execute that. Yes. Okay. Yes, you can see drop database demo is already there and 0 rows affected. But wait, how can I see that this database doesn't exist? So in that case, you can use one more command, like it's called show, right? Show databases. Then you need to just put the semicolon, right? What it will return? It will return all the databases you have in your MySQL workbench. So let me execute that. Okay, you can see I have lots of databases and here there is no database called MySQL demo, right? I have MySQL database, but I don't have any database called MySQL demo. So this is how we can use our DDL command using whenever we are going to make a database. Now let me just re-execute those queries. For that we can again create our database. Yes, use MySQL demo, and then I am not going to use this, right? And then if I going to execute the show databases, let's see if it's going to show MySQL demo or not. Yes, you can see I already can get this, that MySQL demo. So this database is already there in my MySQL workbench, right? So you can be sure, okay, MySQL demo is already there. Now what I need to do, I am going to make a table. But why do we need to make a table, right? So we all know in SQL or in MySQL, what we need to do, we need to make our table, that is basically our database in a tabular form. So right, we need to go for making our first table. So how can I make them, right? So already I have written over there. Let me just copy that. And then I will just show you how I am going to use that part. You can see I have written create. So basically I am going to use the create command. Here you can see I have written database. So basically I was making a database. Now what I am making? I am making a table. So I have written this is a table. Then I need to provide the name of the table. So what is the name of the table? That is student table, right? Now what I need to give? Okay, my table name is already there. Now I need to get our attributes or the columns, right? So in that case, you need to provide the column name. But be sure about the structure, right? You can see that there is a symbol over here. That means you are writing one query, right? You are not writing multiple query. So in that case, your first bracket or the curl bracket or the round bracket, you can say it starts from here. Then you need to write the attributes name. The first attributes for me, it's student ID. Then what type ID I want? I want an integer type ID. So my ID is integer. Now I have already explained what is varchar, and I have also given the range of varchar. So you can see student name, my second attribute name is student name. And then I have provided my student name can be a varchar. What is the length of that student name will be? Maximum is 100. Then I have used a comma. Again, I am going to use course name, right? So this is one more attribute for my table. But be sure one thing over here, I am not using any key. I will add them as well. This is the basic part where I was showing you how can you create your first table using MySQL DDL commands. With time, we will go for using keys and how this relation works, right? So course name is basically here. So course name is also your one attribute. That is also varchar, but the length of that varchar is 40, right? Lastly, be sure about the syntax. We need to close our round bracket and then we need to give a semicolon. So this is how you have to careful whenever you are going to make a table. But one more thing, did you just notice that I have using a comma for each and every attribute, but in the last attribute I didn't use any comma, right? If you put a comma over here, you will get a cross, right? You can see there is a cross. That means your query is not right. You need to rectify your query. Maybe we will get some pop-up, but no, over here we are not getting. But this is something, it's showing your query is not right. Please look into your query. There are some mistakes, syntactical mistakes, or there are some like conceptual mistakes, right? So whenever your query is not right, you will get a cross sign like this. Now what you need to do, you just need to copy this and you just need to use a execute button. Yes, so you can say my table is already ready. But wait, how can I check that what are the tables I have in my database? So we can use again the show commands. So show, what I need to show? The database need to show tables, right? Let me just execute that. How many tables I have in my database? Okay, I have only one table, that is student table, right? So this is how you can see the table structure. Already I have shown you how can you see what are the tables you have in your database. But if I want to see the table schema or the table structure, how can I do that? To doing that, we need to use one more command that is called a describe. This is pretty clear, right? So this is how I really love MySQL because of its simplicity. Obviously it's simple, like it's a normal English, right? I say show tables. Your command is ready. Now I say please describe my table that is called student table. So first you need to write the command describe and the table name you want to see the schema, right? Let me execute that. So here again I'm going to execute. Yeah, you can see I got the field type, null, key, default and extra. But wait, what are these actually stands for? Field is basically what are the attributes you have. Type is basically what are the data types for each of the attribute. Now there comes null. Is your attributes can be null? Did you give that authority to your field that your field can be, your attributes can be null? Yes, for my case I didn't mention anything, so that means your field can be null. And key, did I mention any key? No, I did not mention any primary key or foreign key. So yeah, this is how it's showing your table schema. So we have student ID, the first attribute, that is data type is integer. Then we have a student name attributes called varchar, which lengths have 100. Then lastly we have a course name, which is also the type of varchar and the length of that varchar is 40, right? So this is how you can see your describing student table. Now what I need to do, I need to use a alter command, right? So if we go back to the presentation, let's have a look at what are the commands we left so far, okay? So here we came to the presentation again. So we left with truncate, comment and rename. So let's have one more, that is alter. So let's have a look at how can you actually use alter and truncate. So we came to the MySQL again and let's try to add one more attribute for your student table. Let's try to do that, right? So we are going to use alter command, right? Then what you need to do, you need to provide the table name, right? So for my case, student table. Then add, what you need to add, columns, right? And then I am going to write email. And what will be the type of that email? Varchar and then 100, right? Okay, but I am getting some error. Okay, I was getting some error, but why I was getting the error? Okay, let me go back to the previous phase. So I didn't mention what you need to alter. So here you can see I need to alter table, right? So you need to specify that. Alter what? Table, and then you need to provide the table name, that is student table. Now please add what I need to add. Add the column. What's the column name? That is email. And what's the length of that? What's the type of that column, right? Or the attributes, that's varchar 100, right? So my data type is varchar and the length of that data type is 100, right? So let me just execute that. Yes, you can see my alter table command is already worked. So let me just again check my description of that student table, right? Yes, you can see here my alter email field is already added and the type of the email field is varchar 100, right? So this is how our alter works. Now we will have a look at the truncate command. I have already written over here. Let me just copy this. Okay, so truncate command is also same as the before we have used whatever the command. So basically we are going to use truncate command. Then we need to use what you need to truncate. I want to truncate my table. So basically I want to delete my table, right? And then I need to provide my table name. Okay, so this is student table, right? Let me just execute that. Yes, you can see my truncate table is already done. So if I am going to use the show table commands, let's see what's going to give me. But still it's giving me the tables I have in the database. Let me see the describe. Yes. Okay. So we have seen that if we use truncate table, still we will get the table structure in the database. But wait, why do we use truncate table? I will tell you why we use truncate table and how it's gonna work. Before that, we need to learn and we need to understand some of the other DML, DQL language as well. After learning those commands, you can understand how truncate is working and how it's actually deleting the data from the database. So now we will have a look at the second part. What is DML commands? That is data manipulation language. So let's go back to the presentation and let's have a look at what is DML command. So here we can see DML basically stands for data manipulation language. This DML commands handles all the data manipulation part. Let me give you what is actually data manipulation stands for. Suppose you have a table and now you want to insert some data to your table. How can you do that? Using DML command. Or if you want to get some of the particular data from your database, how can you do that? Using DML command. So this is how DML commands help us, or DML language help us to manipulate our data, right? And it also includes most important parts of SQL. So let's have a look at what are the DML commands we have in MySQL. So we have insert command, we have update and delete command. So when we use the insert command, right? So insert, from the name you can understand that when we need to insert data in the table, that time we need to use insert command. And when do we need to use update command, right? So we use update command if we want to change the table structure or if we want to change some of the data in the existing table. That time we need to use update command. And lastly comes delete. So when we use delete command, so we use delete command when we want to delete a particular data from the database. So we will see first how can you use insert command, and then we will see how can you use DQL command. So basically after using DQL command, we can use update and delete command as well. And we will do all the commands practically in MySQL workbench. So let's go and see how can you use insert command to insert data in your database. So you can see I have already written my command or the language that how can I use insert table. So we know we have a table called student table and we know what are the attributes we have for that particular table, right? So we have student ID attribute, we have student name, course name and email. Now if you want to insert them, you need to write insert and then you need to put into, right? So this is the basic syntax of how can you insert data into your table. Then you need to provide what? You need to provide the table name. My table name is student table. Now in the bracket, I am going to say, okay, what are the attributes I have and what are the attributes values I am going to give. So I have attributes called student ID, student name, course name and email. So these 4 attributes I am going to give data for them. Now, whenever you're going to give the data for all of them, you need to write values, right? So in the values, after the bracket, you need to provide for the student ID, I have provided it is 1. Then for the student name, I have provided the name of the student is Prakash. Then course name is C1002. And lastly, we will have the attribute called email, that is prakash@gmail.com. So this is how we can use our insert command, right? And like the same way, you can write the you can insert thousands of data into your table. Okay, now maybe I'm going to write more data for your convenience, that how can we actually add more data, like millions of data in MySQL, right? Okay, now I'm going to change all the values for them, right? 4, then maybe Shilpi, and then C1106, and then shilpi@gmail.com or shil123@gmail.com, right? And here again we are going to change the data, so we don't want redundant data. So in that case, try to give all the unique data. But wait, we already have learned about primary key. In the next step, I will show you how actually we can use primary key. For that, it reduces the redundancy of the data. And every time it makes sure that your rows value or your rows data is unique, right? Firstly, have a look at what are the commands we have and how can we use that commands. Then we will go for making a table with the key concept we have learned, right? Now, I am going to write Rima, and the course ID should be unique, right? Yes. So this is how we are going to add some of the new entries. These are actually known as entries as well, right? So data we have inserted, that is known as entries when you go for industry level. So that time they call these data as entries, right? So Dev, and maybe this is 8 and this, right? So in this case, we are going to use only the insert command. After learning some of the different SQL commands, we will go for using update and delete command as well, right? Okay, now let me just run this. Yes, you can see you got a message that 1 row is affected. When you got this message that 1 row is affected, that means your query get executed, and this is already stored in your data. But wait, I have inserted the data. How can you see that, like in what manner my data gets executed or my data gets stored, right? So that time the DQL commands come into the picture. So let's have a look at what is DQL and what does it stands for, right? So let's go back to the presentation and have a look at what is DQL command. Now we will have a look at the types of command in MySQL, the DQL one. So basically DQL stands for data query language, and this DQL used to make a queries on data within schema objects. The main focus on DQL command is to get some schema relation based on the query passed into it. And we have one command under DQL, that is called select. This select command is the best or is the key for all the query, you can say, right? So whenever you want to fetch data from your database, you need to use select commands. So let's go to the MySQL workbench and let's have a look at how can we use select command. Now we are going to use select command. So I need to write select, right? Then what I am going to write? Maybe if you want to get one particular column or attribute from your data set, you need to specify that. Maybe for my case, I want student ID. All the student ID I want to see, right? Okay. From, then you need to write a from command. So this is basically where you want to fetch the data. From which table? I want to fetch the data from student table, right? Okay, let me execute that. Yes, you can see I have got all the data for student ID. Now I want to see the course ID as well. So in that case, or maybe the email. So in that case, I need to write email and then I need to execute the same command. So you can see we have got the result for student ID and email both. Let me just minimize that. Yes. So you can see we have got this. Now, if you are going to say, okay, I want to see the course name as well, right? So samely, you need to write course name, the attribute name. Be sure whenever you are going to write the attribute name, they are perfectly correct. Otherwise, it will not fetch the data. Okay. So let me execute that. Yes, you can see I have got the result, right? Student ID, email and course name. Now wait, I want to see all the data, not the particular attributes data. How can I do that? Do I need to write all the data, all the attributes, each of them, like every time I need to write all the attributes name? This is hectic, right? But no, you don't need to do that. What you need to do, you need to write just a star, right? This star is basically fetch all the columns from the data set or the data from the table, right? So I need to write select start from student table. Let me execute that. Yes, you can see I got all the attribute I have. Sorry. Okay. So all the attributes I have in my table, right? So you can see I got student name, course name, student ID and email, right? Okay. So basically if you drag this, you can change the column name according to your uses, right? So basically I got student name, student ID, course name and email. So this is how we use our select command, right? Now we will have a look at the next command we have in MySQL. So let's go back to the presentation and let's have a look at what we have in the next. Now we will have a look at the next command called DCL. This DCL command is basically try to control your data, and this stands for data control language. Basically it deals with the rights and permission of the database. This works for controlling part of the data, and if you want to control your data, you need to use DCL commands. So let's have a look at what are the commands we have under DCL. So basically we have grant and revoke, two types of commands we have. So basically what grant stands for, right? So this grant command provides users access privilege to database. So if you want to give some access to that some particular user, you can give them using grant command. When comes the revoke, revoke is basically if you don't want to give your database access privilege to some particular person, that time you can withdraw that privilege using revoke command, right? So this is what stands for DCL. Now let's go back to MySQL and let's have a look at how can we use delete command that comes under DML, right? So we will have a look at how can you use how can you use DML commands. So here we are going to use delete, but how can you use delete? And what's the difference between delete and truncate as well, right? Okay, so here I am going to show you the truncate command that I have said. I will show you in the later part. Okay, so and the delete we are going to see what and how delete is also working. So first let's have a look at delete. So how can you write delete? So first you need to write delete command, then you need to write from, but where? From where you need to delete, right? You need to write the table name. So for my case, table name is student table. Let me just execute that. Okay, fine. So basically when I was trying to delete my table, that time I was getting a safe update mode error. So what you need to do in that time, right? So if your SQL workbench or MySQL workbench is a safe update mode, that time you cannot delete anything like without any clause, right? Without any condition. So in that case, what I was doing, so that time you need to write a command. What command you need to write? You need to write set SQL safe updates equals to 0. So basically when you are going to use this command and execute this, you can see 0 was affected, but your command get executed, right? Now let's have a look at what we have in our table, right? So using select star from student table, we are going to check that. So you can see we have this, that student ID, student name, course name and email, right? Now what I need to do, I need to just execute my delete command. Again, how can you write the delete command? We need to write delete, that command, and from where you need to delete. I need to delete from student table, right? So I am going to execute that. Yes, you can see that 6 rows affected. Why it's showing 6 rows affected? Because you have 6 rows in your table. So it's got deleted. So let's have a look at actually it's deleted or not, right? Okay, let me use the same query, that select star from student table. I already told you guys that when this select command is basically your like pathway or your everything when you want to retrieve your data, right? So anyway, if you want to retrieve your data, you want to see your data, if you want to manipulate your data, you need to use the select command, right? Now let me just execute that. Yes, you can see I have my table structure, right? But I don't have the data under my table. So this is how delete commands work. Now let me again insert all my data and try to execute truncate command, right? Okay, I am again going to execute all the insert command that I have inserted before. Okay, so let me just execute that. Yes, you can see 1 row is affected. Now what we need to do, we need to again use select star from student table to understand actually data got inserted or not. So as we got the green tick, that means our data got inserted. That's for the second checking. So you can see we got total 7 records in our data. Now we are going to use the truncate table. How can you use truncate table, right? So using truncate table, you need to write truncate, the command, then table, from where table you need to, which table you need to truncate, right? So the table name, for my case, student table. Now let me execute that. Now I already have shown you guys that in the truncate table schema is there. But what is got deleted, right? So basically, again, we are going to use select star command. That's select star from student table. Okay. Okay, I need to go down. Okay, I just changed my, okay, fine. Now what I need to do, I need to write select star from student table, right? Let me just execute that. Yes, you can see I have this table schema, not the data under table. So this is how delete and truncates work. But wait, what's the difference between delete and truncate? If we can do the same thing using delete, why do even need to go for truncate? So let me give you an example. What's the difference between delete and truncate? Now I will give you few examples that what are the difference between delete and truncate. So the basic difference between delete and truncate is when you use delete, it is used to delete specific data, right? Here I didn't give any conditions. Whenever we are going to give some conditions, maybe a particular row you want to delete, right? So that time you need to go for using delete command. But when comes the truncate, it's to delete the entire database of the table. So if you want to maybe delete one particular row from your table, that time you cannot use truncate. You need to use delete command. Now let's have a look at when we have where clause. So I will give you an example where we are going to use where clause and what actually that where clause stands for. So when we use where clause, with the where clause we can use delete. But for the truncate time, whenever you are going to use truncate command, that time you cannot use a where clause. So basically where clause help us to give condition to do some particular work. But as we know in the truncate is not going to listen any condition. It's going to delete all the records from your data, right? Now comes the locking part. So when it comes to the delete, it locks the table row before deleting the row, right? But in the case of truncate, it locks the entire table. Okay. Now comes the rollback. So what is rollback? So rollback is basically if you want to roll back your data. But using delete, you can roll back the changes, whatever you have made. But using truncate, you cannot roll back your changes, right? Now the performance for delete is really slow, but for the case of truncate, it is faster than delete. So these are the basic difference between truncate and the delete command. Now let's go back to the presentation again and let's have a look at what other type of commands we have in our MySQL. Now we will have a look at the other command type we have in MySQL. That is TCL command. But what does TCL stands for, right? TCL is basically transaction control language. It helps you to control the transaction. We have commit. So why do we use commit command? Commit is basically used to commit a transaction. Then comes the rollback. Roll back a transaction for any error occurs. If you have any error, that time you can use rollback transaction command. Now comes a save point. So basically save point uses save point within a transaction. If you want to create a save point within a transaction, you need to use the save point command. Then lastly, the command we have for TCL, that is save transaction, is basically used to specify the characteristics for the transaction as well. Now we are going to use a filter. So in this filter, using this filter, you can start doing the, maybe you don't need the all records you have in your data set. Okay. So what you need to do, you just need to just pick the specified data from your database. How can you do that? That time where clause comes into the picture. So basically where clause is used to filter the record from the data. We use where clause with select command. Right? In this tutorial, we have talked about what is MySQL, what are the basics you need to know to start with MySQL, and how to manage your data using MySQL. We hope you like the video and please do let us know in the comment section what you feel about this particular tutorial. And also if you want to do more such courses, in that case you can go to Great Learning Academy where you will get almost 80 plus courses and these are free courses. You can do this on the websites, and if you want to do these things in your mobile application, that is also possible using Great Learning app. Thank you so much.